What's cracking? It's Chris. Episode 2 is coming here right now. Alright, we're back. Episode 2, here it is. We're a bit behind schedule, but that's okay because we're finally here. So, episode 2, what do we got? Well, we've done some prints, we've done some calibrations, we've moved on from the specs, the bits, the bobs, the bits and pieces, the parts, and all the essentials, and we've gone right into it. We've done some calibrations, we've printed some stuff from stock, we've swapped out some nozzles, we've printed some stuff with 0.6 nozzles, we've printed some stuff with 0.4mm nozzles, we've got some time lapses, we've got some silk prints, we've got some multicolour prints, well, silk multi-change colour prints, we've got some mask prints, we've got some swords, and we've got some calibration prints to test the tolerances as well. Let's dive straight into it. So what do we do? What have we done? What's happened and where are we at? So we've done our first layer calibration. We found out that the calibration was slightly off. Those of you who haven't watched episode 1, jump back in to watch episode 1 before you watch episode 2. Otherwise you're watching everything in backwards in time and reverse and all that jazz. Don't want to do that. So jump across to episode 1, watch that video, smash that like and subscribe. And you know what? If you like the video, you like the content, you know what, it helps support me, helps brings more of this content. I don't get paid at the moment for this content. Sometimes pet companies send me printers with no guidelines and just basically says, here you go, Chris, give us a raw, honest review, give the public what they want, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. But it's pretty hard to buy these machines for thousands of dollars when you're running out of limited funds. So if you like the content that I'm producing, buy me a coffee, subscribe, like, comment, hype me up in the algorithm, get us up there, guys. We need it, I need it, just to keep the channel going. So anyway, moving along from that, so we've done the bits and bobs in episode 1, specs and, you know, components and da-da-da-da. A couple of things I forgot to mention in episode 1 was the build volume. Now, with the build volume, it states 270 by 270 by 256. Now, it's not purely 270 by 256. Why is that? Well, as soon as you add the multicolor QIDI box system on top or on the side, whichever way you want to do it, basically what happens is it needs room for the filament cutter and the spring-loaded buffer at the back and for the poop chute and the nozzle wipe mechanism. That then utilizes up build space volume and thus reduces it from 270 by 270 256 and makes it 256 square. It's unfortunate. The build plate on the build plate does say 280. The front of the build plate plate itself says 270 270. But although I know, guys, it can be a bit misleading, it is 256 by 256 by 256 squared if you are going multicolor. I will have and have been informed that the multicolor unit is on its way, and I will be receiving the full production release model, not the beta test unit. So the full production model, which has some significant upgrades that have been improved, which pretty much solved a lot of the problems that the beta testers had. So that will be coming probably more than likely after episode 3, or you never know, maybe episode 3 with a multicolor box with engineering filament as well. Behind me, I don't know if you can see it from there, I've got spools. I've got about 7 or 8 different spools. I've got PAHT, I've got PETG carbon fibre, I've got PA6 and PA612, I've got nylon glass fibre, ASA glass fibre, ABS carbon fibre, nylon carbon fibre, TPU 95A. It goes on and on. I've got PEEK, I've got PP. There's, you know, different types of, I've got glass, different types of nylon glass fibre and carbon fibre. I've spent about $500 to $600 Australian on filament, so, you know, it is what it is. Hopefully we get those views out there so, you know, we can get some of these funds back, but it is what it is. I'm here to provide honest content, so that's that. Anyway, moving along from that, one of the other things I might not have mentioned that people haven't picked up on is with the first layer I did a calibration, which we'll show you in a second. I might pop the picture of the first calibration, first layer up just here, and you'll notice that the stock profile, I did the first layer just to see what the first layer was like, and it wasn't bad. I'll be honest, I did a bed mesh, just standard bed mesh calibration with machine. I didn't do it within the fluid interface, which is part of the slicer, the QIDI slicer, which is basically I would put it as I'd probably put it as a hybrid orca slicer. The reason why I say a hybrid orca slicer is because it is an orca slicer interface, although there are some features that it doesn't have that orca slicer has, but then it has other things that it includes that Orca Slicer doesn't have. So it's a little bit unique. It's not Bamboo Studio. It's not Orca Slicer. It's not, you know, Flash Forge Orca. It's none of those. It's a little bit different. It's unique in certain ways. It's a little bit tricky to find certain settings because I think it's a little bit more advanced. The layout's a little bit different. But I have found it quite good, I'll have to say. That'll probably be another tutorial I'll probably run through after episode 3, along with the color unit when that arrives. So moving on from that, we calibrated that, and I found that, you know, just doing it through the slicer wasn't good enough. So I went through into the device settings, so you can move on from when you go into the QIDI Tech slicer, you go from prepare into preview, which is when you slice your file, and then you click on the device tab, and that brings up the fluid interface, which those of you who know fluid or mainsail is basically the Klipper interface of sorts, which allows you to access the total bed mesh, which is the actual full base platform of the probe leveling itself, including things like Z offset adjustment, flow rate adjustment, all the G-code command files, all your flow rate files, and so many other files, you know, including time lapses, hyperlapses, camera frame rate, and all different stuff you can access in there. Won't go into that. That's a different spectrum altogether. But basically what I did is I'll show you a picture on screen in a moment. Basically, what I did is I've done a very unique way of looking at things. So I've used my light boxes that I use for my filming, and I've put them under, say, what you would use a light box for. I've used my camera light setup to show you the comparison of the first layer. So basically, what we'll do is you'll see a time lapse come up right now of the first layer, printing the time lapse of the first layer, and obviously with that first layer there was some issues. Not so much, I would probably rate it probably about 70-75%. It was more to do with the flow rate calibration and I would say the Z offset. Fortunately, I'll give this to QIDI Tech, fortunately with the actual build plate, I'll pop another photo up just here as well, is that under the build plate you have 2 rear springs that are adjustable by a 10mm nut, and also there is 2 spaces at the front which you can actually put spaces in if you wanted to, but all I did was just loosen the spacer off a quarter of a turn because on my mesh the front 2 corners were down a little bit, so I needed them to come up about 0.07 of a mil. So I did that quarter of a turn, and the rear as well. I'll throw a screenshot in of my mesh before and after. This will be before and this one will be after, and you can see the comparisons between the two. That was before and that was after. There was one that I didn't capture, which was the stock one, unfortunately, but that was, you know, it was, I would say, not much different to the first one that was stock before I calibrated from the actual fluid interface, so just from the slicer. So basically you'll see now, I'll throw them both up, the time lapse should have finished now. You'll see on the bottom, you'll see the first layer, which is the first layer calibration before I actually calibrated it. So just basically the stock profile, the stock QIDI Tech profiles, which I must say are pretty good. Being a sort of, I suppose, a professional, I studied the profiles and slicer settings quite extensively in multiple slicers as well. You know, I did find some characteristics that I didn't like, and I changed and improved it entirely. You'll see on the light box now, you'll see the reference between the bottom one, that's the stock layer that I did on the first layer, and then simply by adjusting the rear springs on the underside of the build plate and the front spacer adjustment, and then applying that to the calibrate on mesh on the actual mesh page on the fluid interface, and then adjusting the Z offset by, I think it was 0.07, I was able to get pretty much what I would call a 98 to 99% perfect. Most probably people would say perfect layer. Looking at this light box now, you can see the top one, there's no imperfections. The bottom one, you can clearly see imperfections. Most people would say, Chris, that's pretty flawless, the top one. But for me, I can see slight variations where I could probably dial that in a bit better. Anyway, that said, I'd have to give it to QIDI. First layer, even just stock, is pretty good. I think what I did for the first layer is I probably chose, I didn't use a QIDI filament. I just used a generic filament. I've got G-Tech filament with me. I threw that in, didn't calibrate it for the QIDI filament being slightly different. Thus the reason why I probably got that first layer I did. After a few adjustments, like I said, calibrated the mesh, adjusted the build plate via the spring adjustments at the back, remeshed it via fluid, and then adjusted the flow rate by 0.1% and the Z offset by 0.7. I was able to get a perfect layer. Those two layers, once again, if you can see them there, that one there is the first one. You can see there's some holes there. Put my finger through it. Yeah, I'll just make it worse. And that's this second one, which is absolutely flawless. So under light again, that's the calibrated one, which, people would say, that's perfect. For me, it's 99.9. So, hats off to QIDI. They've got a great build plate. I love the idea that they've got the adjustments for the rear springs. I think that's great. The nozzle itself being a nozzle sensor calibration rather than the bed level pressure sensor, I think is an awesome improvement. That way it's more sensitive, you get a better bed mesh, and it allows for more fine tuning. So I'd have to say out of all the machines that I own so far, including P1S from Bamboo, this would be the best first layer I've had on any printer. I'm not blowing them up at all. I was recently working with FlashForge. FlashForge 80F5X has got a really good first layer as well, although it's a smaller build volume. So once you start getting into a bigger build volume build plates, obviously the mesh calibration for first layer adhesion becomes a lot more difficult because you have more heat spread, and thus the first layer is a lot more difficult to achieve a perfect build plate first layer, so being level. So that's more difficult. So that's that. Obviously outside of that, we've got our prints we've done as well, so we'll give you a walk around. We'll show you the prints of that. I've done a bit of everything really. I did a front facing gold silk Punisher mask. I did a utility box which is half made out of PETG and PLA mats. I've done a Japanese Nomi mask. I've used multiple filaments too. Just to throw in a little bit of a mix here, I haven't just used one filament. So I've used FlashForge filament, I've used G-Tech filament, I've used QIDI filament, and I've also used Overture filament, and what else have I used? And Creality filament as well. So I've thrown in a whole heap of them, and I did calibrate the machine in the end for the G-Tech filament, basically because I use G-Tech a lot. They help me out with materials, so it makes more sense. As you can see, this came out absolutely spectacular. In the light there, come out absolutely beautiful. That's the rainbow from QIDI. As far as everything else is, let's run through. I'll show you a pop-up picture now of the calibration stress test, which shows you the overhang, and also the tolerance test as well. I also did a tolerance test on that as well. So let's jump right into it and have a look at the prints, and we'll go from there. Alright, so I'll try and do this as good as possible. I'm on my own today, so I haven't got anyone helping me at the moment. Some of the prints I did, which I'll show time lapses as well. I'll bring up a time lapse of this one. This is an octopus that I did. This is a FlashForge Abyssal Red, I think it was called. Really nice colour actually. It's more of a purple or a maroon colour, and that came out absolutely flawless. The first layer on that was really nice as well. As you can see, it's hard to flip that over there under the lights, but yeah, that was really good as well. No problems at all there with the linkages, no stringing. It was really good, cleaned up really well. These are some of the prints that I took to the festival, and they were quite popular. These little jellyfish came out absolutely exceptional. You can see there right now, they are absolutely beautiful. They come out really nice. I love the way they are. Really good for people who like sensory items as well. Flip that over and you can see underneath there as well, the first layer adhesion, and even in the interlocking chains were actually beautiful. The bridging on the cone on the inside there, that actually worked really well. Even though you can see the seam there, that came out really, really nicely. So really happy with that. So that was really good as well. The Dragon, I did this one in a 0.6, and that came out really well. It's got movable wings there that fold in and out, and they're also pivotable as well, so that's really good. Now that was done in a 0.6 layer, and I was very, very surprised at the quality of that. I'll zoom in, you'll be able to see the layer lines as I zoom in. Obviously with the 0.6 layer you're never going to get perfection, because 0.6 layer nozzles are usually for bigger prints, but I actually found out later on, after I modelled this print, I actually printed this print, that he actually had a jaw that opened as well. So that was pretty cool as well. So yeah, so that was quite interesting as well. That was using the G-Tech filament, the G-Tech Rainbow Fast Change, which was quite good as well. Moving on from that, we've got the Nomi, which was also done in the Abyssal. You can get some better light here. You can see that there. That was done with no supports whatsoever. Absolutely beautiful. Came out very, very nice, if I must say so myself. So very happy with that. No supports, even the intricate mesh inside there. I mean, it was, yeah, there's no problems with that at all. That came out really nice. That was using a 0.4 nozzle as well. So most of these prints are with a 0.4 nozzle. This one here I did before I calibrated. So this is the Punisher, the gold Punisher iron mask. So the iron Punisher, it's the face shield for the mask for the iron Punisher. I did it in gold silk. Couple little imperfections there and layer imperfections, nothing to write home about. Did that in a 0.6 layer, so obviously there is some layering there, but obviously, you know, if that was done in a 0.4, you know, and obviously now that it's been calibrated, you'd obviously get it better as well. Moving on from that, I did a drawer system for my daughter, which came out really well. I was quite happy with it. Tolerance issues weren't an issue. There was no warping in the parts and the build plate. Everything came out really nicely. There was a couple of layer lines. That's from the actual before I calibrated it, so there was some imperfections there with pressure advance. Not to be a big worry with that. That's now been fixed. And once again, the insert for that. The actual whole structure itself was made from PETG, and the PETG in the white printed absolutely perfectly. There's a short that I'll post for that as well, when it came off the build plate, and it came off absolutely, like, really, really nicely. So I was very happy with that as well. Yeah, that came out probably far better than what I expected. The PETG really did come up really nicely. Obviously the sword, now with the tolerance tests, I'll show you another photo pop up now on the screen. The overhang tests proved actually quite well. I was quite surprised. We'll bring it over here into the light. I was quite surprised with the overhang test. In fact, the overhang itself, the details came out quite well. I'll try and zoom in on that, get it in focus if I can. It came out very well. The writing was fairly well, the circumferences, and the bridging was actually surprised me. The bridging was really good. So some of the better bridging I've seen before in the past. And this was done at stock speed. So this was done at 200 millimeters and 300 millimeters a second, mind you guys. So this wasn't done at a slow speed at all whatsoever. And the overhangs itself, basically flip it around here, if I can get a good look at it here, if we can get a nice angle, get in the light. So the overhangs, zoom out a little bit. There we go. So the overhangs, really, you can barely even see any real sagging there on the bridging at all at the peak, and that's at the very, very peak of that overhang, which is quite impressive, to say the least. And you know, that's at 80 degrees, so you know, for an overhang to have barely any you know, drooping or sagging on that bridge is quite impressive. The tolerance test, that came out fairly well as well. The tolerance test came out quite well. It had no problems with the 0.4 nozzle going right down to the 0.2, and even the 0.2 literally just falls out. There's no problems with that at all. So, you know, that could even go even better. So the only problem I did have with it, obviously I didn't do the stringing. I actually broke this off right before filming. I knocked it and snapped this corner one off because they're quite thin. So yeah, I broke that off accidentally. I whacked it, and I'm a bit of a klutz sometimes, heavy-handed they say. So yeah, but the tolerance test, I couldn't complain with that at all. That came out absolutely beautiful. You know, they all lift out really easily, as you can see down there. No problems at all with that there. So yeah, no complaints at all. Realistically, I would have to say, you know, if I was to give this a rating from prints, you know, don't forget to scan a QR code, throw that in there as well. That's the QR code for the subscribe for the channel. But realistically, Q2, I would have to say, from a prints perspective and first layer perspective, I would probably give it, if it was rated out of 10, I would probably give it probably a good solid 9 to 9.5. Yeah, that high, guys. Yeah, I know. So anyway, let's now jump across to the interface, and we'll go through the screen interface. We'll get the 4.3 or 4.5 touchscreen interface. As far as the touchscreen sensitivity goes, it is quite good. I was quite happy with it, to be honest. Works quite well. You've obviously got your basic settings on your home screen there. You've got your nozzle temperature, your heated bed temperature, and your chamber temperature, which works quite well. We can basically just grab that there, and away you go. You've got your home settings there, which you can home. Then you've got your Z offset up and down once it's finished homing the bed itself. And then obviously once it reaches temperature, you can then obviously extrude the filament if you like to do that as well. We'll let that finish. You can adjust your build plate, obviously, up to 130 degrees, your nozzle temperature up to 370, and then you've got your increments that you can adjust the Z height or the Y and XY movement for whatever reason you need to on the build surface and on the bed itself. Once homed, obviously, you can go through the different menus. You can then obviously just lower that down, and you can lower the build interface down and so forth. We can adjust the bed temperatures. We can adjust the bed temperatures. Go back into there. And from the actual control that we just went through, so we're at home button there. You've got box not connected because we don't have our QIDI color box on the top there. It shows the first layer print that we did before, which I have the time lapse on, which was just seen in the video before. And you can turn your light on and off and Wi-Fi on and off as well. So if you want to go, you don't want the Wi-Fi on, or for whatever reason, the light off. Now keep in mind, if you do turn the light off, it will affect the sensitivity of your AI sensitivity calibration. So it won't detect spaghetti or filament that's, you know, gone array and, you know, problems with your print. So keep that in mind as well. Moving on from that, basically by pressing any of these three icons, it takes you to this setting here, which is the control menu. So same thing really, whether you press that or that. In here you have the same adjustments that I spoke about. Then you've got your filament adjustments in here, where if you've got your box connected in there, you can choose and calibrate your colors, obviously per slot, whether it's bay 1, 2, 3 or 4, or if you've got more than one QIDI box multicolor unit, then you can obviously select different colors. As far as the filament's concerned, you've got your load and unload button. I would always make sure that you load and unload, well not unload, but when you're loading your filaments and swapping filaments, always purge the filaments first. That'll prevent any blockages, especially when you change a material from say PLA to PETG or anything that's abrasive like carbon fiber and so on. As far as selecting your filaments, you just press the edit button and it comes up with an array of different options. You've got your QIDI there and you've got generic. As far as filaments are concerned, it is a massive amount. It is a mouthful. So I'll try and get around the other side so we can have a look. So you've got everything and more that's listed in the manual, from PLA matte to PLA metal, silk, carbon fiber PLA, wood, basic, matte, basic PLA, support for PLA, which you can use through the QIDI box, ABS, ABS glass fiber, ABS metal, odorless ABS, ASA, Aero ASA, ASA carbon fiber, PC Ultra. You can see how many there is. You've got Ultra PA carbon fiber 25, PA 6 and 12 like I spoke about before, PPS glass fiber, PAHT carbon fiber and glass fiber, which I'll be testing as well. Support for PAHT as well, and PET and PA. We have ABS and PC as well, TPE and PBAR, and then it goes right through to PET, CF, glass fiber, PETG, basic, your tough PETG, your carbon fiber, glass fiber, PPS, translucent PETG. So basically it has a really good amount of profiles to automatically select for pressure advanced settings and so on. You've got your PVA, you've got your different types of TPU, your 64, your Aero, and your standard TPU, which is your 95A. So you really do have a massive selection of built-in presets for filament, which, to be honest, I'll say myself, is quite unique. Even if you're going generic, there is still quite a lot. So like I said before, still a lot for generic. Obviously with the generic you have to map them yourself, but that's neither here or there, that's just how it is. So yeah, that's that one there. Obviously, you've got your colour options as well. You can select your colours from there as well. Sometimes I do wish they'd have a bit more of a colour option, but that's, part of it. You can do that on the slicer, so that's fine. Your temperature extruder, and you've got your box temperature. So with the actual quick QIDI box, the QIDI box also acts as a dryer as well, and that can go up to 65 degrees Celsius as well. So you've got a double edge there. So you've got the QIDI box itself, when mounted, will dry the filament up to 65 degrees. Then you've got a heated chamber that goes up to 65 degrees, but then you can also dry industrial engineering grade filament on the bed surface as well for up to 12 hours, turning at 6-hour intervals at up to 90 degrees Celsius. So that's a really, really cool feature. Then moving on from that, you've got your tools. So you've got your auto leveling, input shaping and filament drying, which I mentioned before, and your platform calibration, which goes through using the extruder sensor and does your full mesh calibration and all your input shaping and resonance tuning all in one. So that's a complete, basically does everything all at once for you. And then you've got your others menu, which is just your cooling fan, your chamber fan, circulation fan. It does have obviously an auxiliary fan built in, obviously extrusion, heatsink fan, and obviously your blower fans as well. You've got your sound icon there as well. Folder menu shows you the prints that you've done or loaded. Now, one thing I will say about this is that it doesn't tend to show up the prints in order that you've loaded them in. So that's something, I'm not sure why that is. It's probably just the firmware orientation. I'm not sure what that is or if I've missed something, but I've gone through it a couple of times and you can see I've printed quite a fair bit on this device here. So I've already clocked over 250 hours plus on it. So and then you've got your USB as well. So it doesn't bring it up in order of what you printed it in, but it does if you go into the interface. So if you go into the slicer and then go into device, in the fluid area, it does show them as you've actually uploaded them to the printer. So that's that. That's the only gripe I've got with that. Obviously, USB button. You can go back there. Then you've got your settings icon. Now with your settings icon, you've got your print settings, which doesn't give you a lot really. It just gives you AI detection, spaghetti detection, low, medium and high. And then you've got your English, your time, screensaver on and off. After sales, I've got to love this one. After sales, just contact Carl. Good old Carl. Just scan the wiki page and give Carl some feedback. So shout out to Carl, QIDI Tech. How are you, Carl? Good on you, bud. So thumbs up for Carl. Everyone give Carl a comment in the comment section. Shout out to Carl. Good old Carl. How are you, mate? I hope you're working well, doing all the support for QIDI Tech. I hope there's more than one of you. But anyway, then you've got your network, obviously. You've got your wireless, wired LAN, and so on, your IP addresses and whatnot, network detection. Now, you've got your servers. You've got your 2 servers. Now, this is unique, actually, that it's not common in most printers. So you've got AWS and you've got Alien. Now, AWS is basically Europe and Western servers. And then you've got Alien, which is basically Asia. So depending on where you are and what location you are, for better connectivity to the server through remote acquisition and control, and better, fluid visuals for your camera so you can see everything's going on remotely, better frame rates and faster updates if you're changing settings on the fly through the remote access. You're going to want to choose between the different ones. Like I said, the Alien one is more Asia Pacific, and then you've got AWS, which is Europe and Western region as well. So that's that there. Hopefully they add more servers. That'd be great, especially for Australia and Oceania. You got your fluid management, which you can create there. You can add your account, sign into Fluid, and actually have a dedicated account for Fluid as well, which is really cool. You got your system there, which gives you update settings, your status of your Klipper, and then you've got your export logs. If you want to export the logs as far as the G-code files, for whatever reason, you wanted to modify it so that you could actually utilize the full bed volume of 270 rather than the 256, you can do that by editing that system in the G-code as well. Obviously, they've got that. If you go into the wiki files, QIDI.com or QIDI wiki at QIDI.com, I think it is, you can look that up, and they've got full instructions on how to do that. And that's obviously a factory reset. And then your account, obviously, you can see that that's there, me, Chris Creations. And that's pretty much basically what you get there. So accumulated printing 9 days 11 hours, so you can see I've really put some hours on this thing already. So yeah, so that's pretty much the user interface in full. So as you can see, it's quite extensive, got a lot of features, and obviously when you're printing as well, when you first start your print, you can then go into the print settings, which is usually under control, and in the control interface, when it shows what's printing, you can print the little details page down the bottom, and that'll bring up your flow rate, your fan speeds, and also your Z offset, which you can also adjust whilst printing, which is actually very good because some printers don't allow you to do that. I know with the S1, the Cobra from Anycubic, you can't adjust the Z offset on the flow, on the print, whilst on the go, whereas other printers like say Bamboo and Creality can. So it really depends on the firmware, and obviously FlashForge you can as well. So it's good that they've included that as well, but that shows up once you're in your printing phase. So that's pretty much it for the user interface. USB on the right hand side, and you've got about 30 degrees of swivel there as well. So yeah, we'll jump back around. Alright, so first layer's done. It's been calibrated, and we've calibrated it, you know, I'd say about 90%. Still got to do some pressure advances, but let's get the build plate off. Let's check out the first layer. It's had enough time to cool. So far it looks a lot better than the first one. We'll get off the build plate. We'll see how we go. And I've got a little trick that I like to use, and that is I use my light boxes that I use for my studio lighting, and I put that on the light box, and that shows through the light, and then I can see through any gaps. And that's something that no one else really does. So let's do that now, and we'll compare the first one, which was not calibrated, with this one which has been calibrated and probably can be calibrated a little bit more. What we'll do now is we'll put the second one, which has been calibrated, I'd say to about 95%, which as you can see right there. It's hard to see in the light. Oh, that looks pretty good. Let's compare. So far, that is quite an improvement already. As you can see the difference there in the light. We'll zoom in a little bit. The difference there as well. Now one looks smaller because that's just the camera angle at a 45 degree angle. So the top one looks smaller, but it's not actually smaller. It's just the angle of the camera. I can move the top one into position, and you can have a look and see both. You can see obviously with the first one we did, there's some separation here. You know, you've got some big separations here, here, and some mild ones in the middle, here and here. So what I did was I went into the fluid setup. I did a mesh calibration, which is quite easy to do. So basically just on the actual device itself, on the slicer, you just go from the slicer section to slice and then click device. That automatically takes you to the fluid page. Those of you that are familiar with main sale fluid will be familiar with that page. But basically that brings you up to a setting page where you can view all the system settings of your printer, including your Z offset, your travel speeds, your flow rates, etc., your mapping of your build plate, and so many more features, including camera resolution, all the rest of it. Basically we looked at the mesh, and I found that the corners of the front right and left were a little bit down, and the middle was raised under a heated bed. Now always do this under a heated bed. I recommend at least 55 degrees Celsius plus. And then I basically, with the Q2, you'll find that the front there's two 8mm nuts. It has a spacer on the two front sections, and it has two rear springs. Now they're there for a reason. I didn't mention that in episode 1, and I did show you a photo of it though. And that is what I did was I was able to just basically give a quarter of a turn on the rear right side, and the front left side I was able to give it a quarter of a anti-clockwise turn, which means it raised the bed up and dropped the right side down, and then I did the same, raise the bed up for the left hand corner as well. And obviously from that you can see the difference is next to, you know, almost perfect. I mean, that is almost a perfect layer right there. So that's only one layer. Like I said, that's a 0.4mm layer. So that's almost, well, I'd pretty much call that close to as you can get as a perfect layer. Obviously you can see a massive difference in this here. Once again, under the light, we'll go to the front section again. You can see that there. And then switch back to the calibrated one. and you can see that there. Slight under extrusion, I mean, probably, you know, it's probably about 98% calibrated there. You could probably fine tune it with a little bit more flow rate, just to get a bit more squish on the left hand side midsection there, middle side. It's probably about, you know, the 125 Y range of the 256 build plate, 127 or whatever you want to call it. You know, the midpoint to the far left, there's a slight gap there, not much to worry about, and that's pretty much going to give us now what we want, a perfect bed layout compared to the other one, which had a lot of gaps. As you can see, there's a huge difference between that and that one. So pressure advance 0.28 and probably a little bit more calibration, but you know, that's 99% perfect. So that's the first layer, just showing you the stock standard first layer is pretty good, like I said, but that's why they've built in the adjustments in the build plate. So you've got 2 rear spring adjustments and 2 front spacers, and obviously you can adjust the Z offset by the mesh via fluid. So that's our first layer calibration. I'd give that, I'd probably out of 10, I'd probably, you know, I'd probably give that about a 9.7. Stock, I'd give that probably about a 7.5 to 7 if I compared that to other printers. So pretty darn good, I'd say. Anyway, all right, let's move along. Oh, just before I go too, I left one important thing out. Episode 2, I was going to include the t-shirt printing frame behind me right here. Unfortunately, I found out that I needed to have a Q1 build plate, so that's on order. I should have that probably next week. Part 3 episode with all the engineering grade filament. We'll go through all that. We'll do the power testing as well, and then I might throw in an extra smaller review with a setup and instruction profile on how to use this little unit here, and do some printing on some t-shirts and some clothing and whatnot, and anything else I can think of. So stay tuned for that as well. That'll be an extra add-on to episode 3.5, let's call it. So anyway, guys, I hope you like this one. Smash that like button, hit that hype button if it comes up. That helps a lot. Buy me a coffee if you want to. If not, doesn't matter. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.